Sunlight and shadows. Evelyn Blackwell, 41, is steady and reliable. She's a successful landscape architect, grounded by her work and her small, close-knit group of friends. Romance? Well, she's open to it, but she's not actively searching. Evelyn is content. But Samira Torres, 45, is anything but steady. She's an ER doctor, pulled in every direction by the demands of her chaotic family and her high-stress job. Recently divorced, Samira's life feels like it's unraveling at the seams. When Samira's coffee tumbler unexpectedly slips from her hand and spills all over her scrubs during a quick midday walk, she barely reacts. She's too used to things going wrong. Evelyn, who's nearby enjoying her lunch break in the park, rushes over with napkins and a kind smile, and just like that, something shifts in both their worlds. Evelyn had chosen her usual spot in the city park, a wooden bench tucked away near a fountain, shaded by a towering maple tree. She enjoyed people watching and often brought her sketchbook to capture scenes from the park. Today, though, her attention was drawn to a woman striding down the gravel path, her face weary, but her pace purposeful. The woman, probably a bit shorter than Evelyn, with short, wavy hair and a serious expression, was dressed in scrubs. She held a coffee tumbler in one hand and seemed preoccupied, her gaze drifting over the park without really seeing it. There was something magnetic about her, a certain intensity that caught Evelyn's eye. Before Evelyn could look away, the woman's coffee tumbler slipped from her grasp, hitting the ground with a loud clatter and splashing coffee all over her scrubs and shoes. She sighed heavily, shaking her head as she looked down at the mess. Evelyn quickly stowed her sketchbook and approached the woman, pulling out a small pack of napkins from her bag. "Hey, need a hand?" The woman glanced up, surprised, her dark brown eyes meeting Evelyn's with a hint of relief. "Oh, thank you. She gave a defeated smile, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "It's been one of those days." Evelyn smiled sympathetically. "I get it. Here, these might help." She handed over the napkins. As the woman wiped coffee from her hands and scrubs, Evelyn noticed the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes. Still, there was a kindness in her expression, a softness beneath the weariness. "Thanks," she said, managing a small smile. "I'm Samira, by the way." "Evelyn," she replied, extending a clean hand. "Pleased to meet you, Samira. Even if it's under slightly caffeinated circumstances." Samira laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Yeah, not exactly my best luck." She tossed the used napkins in a nearby trash can, then gave Evelyn an appraising look. "Do you come here often?" Evelyn nodded, gesturing to the bench where she'd left her things. "It's my little escape from the chaos of work. I'm a landscape architect, so I guess I feel at home among trees and fountains." "That sounds peaceful," Samira said wistfully. "I could use a bit of that in my life." They chatted for a few more minutes, and Evelyn found herself surprised by how easy it was to talk to Samira. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with gentle teasing and laughter. She learned that Samira was recently divorced and that life had been especially chaotic lately with her job in the ER and her complicated family dynamics. Eventually, Samira checked her watch and sighed. "Duty calls. Thank you for, well, everything. I think I needed this break more than I realized." Evelyn gave her a warm smile. "Anytime. Maybe I'll see you around here again." Samira's eyes softened. "I'd like that." Over the next few weeks, Samira found herself drawn to the park during her lunch breaks, hoping to see Evelyn again. And Evelyn, in turn, began spending a little more time than usual by the fountain, sketching and waiting. They started meeting regularly, their shared moments a quiet refuge from the storms in their lives. With each meeting, their connection deepened. Evelyn admired Samira's resilience and fierce dedication to her work, while Samira was drawn to Evelyn's calm presence and steady kindness. They shared stories, laughed over shared frustrations, and offered each other comfort in the small things. One breezy afternoon, as they sat on the bench side by side, Samira looked at Evelyn with a mixture of curiosity and vulnerability. "It's strange, but meeting you has been the highlight of my month. I feel like I can finally breathe when I'm around you." Evelyn took Samira's hand in hers, a small gesture of reassurance. "Same here. I didn't realize how much I needed someone like you in my life." They sat in comfortable silence, the gentle rustle of leaves filling the air. In that moment, they both knew that what they had was more than just a friendship, it was something deeper, something worth holding onto. But life, as always, had a way of testing them. Samira's demanding job and complicated family kept pulling her in different directions, while Evelyn's work began to pick up, leaving her with less free time. Their moments together grew rarer, their lives feeling stretched and pulled apart by the demands of the world around them. One day, after a particularly difficult week, Samira felt herself unraveling. She wanted nothing more than to see Evelyn, to find solace in her calm presence. But when she tried to reach out, Evelyn was busy with a major project, unable to meet. The strain started to weigh on both of them, and before they knew it, they found themselves drifting apart. Months later, a family crisis forced Samira to confront what mattered most. She thought of Evelyn, of the peace and happiness they'd shared in those precious moments in the park. She realized that, even amid her chaotic life, Evelyn was the one steady thing that had ever made her feel whole. With renewed determination, she reached out, asking Evelyn if they could meet again by the fountain. And Evelyn, who had missed Samira every day since they'd drifted apart, agreed without hesitation. When they met, they didn't need words to express how much they'd missed each other. They simply embraced, holding on tightly, grounding each other in that shared moment of love and understanding. From that day on, they made a promise to prioritize each other, even in the face of life's chaos. Their love grew stronger, rooted in those quiet, shared moments by the fountain. And through every storm and challenge, they found strength in each other, knowing that sometimes, all you need to weather life's trials is someone who believes in you, and who you can believe in, too. In the end, their love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It was about finding solace and joy in the small, quiet moments, in the steady, enduring presence of someone who understood. And as they walked hand in hand through the park, Evelyn and Samira knew they'd finally found a home in each other. As the seasons changed and winter began to soften into spring, Evelyn and Samira found themselves slipping into a comfortable rhythm. They made a habit of meeting at the park after work whenever they could, each encounter filled with easy laughter and deep conversation. The city park had become their sanctuary, a small bubble of peace amid the chaos of life. One day, as they sat side by side on their favorite bench, watching the sunset filter through the budding trees, Samira turned to Evelyn, a question hanging on her lips. "Do you ever think about what's next for us?" Samira asked softly, her fingers nervously playing with the hem of her jacket. Evelyn looked at her, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I think about it a lot," she admitted. "But I'm not in any rush. I like where we are right now." She paused, searching Samira's face. "But if you have something in mind, I'm listening." Samira's eyes softened, and she took Evelyn's hand, tracing small circles on her palm. "I don't need anything more than what we have," she said slowly, as if she were realizing it as she spoke. "But I'd like us to share more of our lives. I know we're both so busy, but maybe we could carve out a bit more time together." Evelyn squeezed her hand. "I'd love that. Maybe I could come by your place one night for dinner. We could take turns, make it our little tradition." A slow smile spread across Samira's face. "Deal. But I'll warn you, my cooking skills are hit or miss. You might end up regretting this." Evelyn laughed, the sound light and carefree. "I'm willing to take the risk." Their first dinner at Samira's place turned into a night to remember. Samira had tried her best to cook, but somewhere along the way, things went sideways. They ended up laughing as they salvaged what they could, eventually giving up and ordering pizza. Sitting on the floor of Samira's small, cozy apartment, surrounded by takeout boxes and empty wine glasses, they felt closer than ever. As the night wore on, Evelyn looked around the room, taking in the small personal touches, a stack of medical journals on the coffee table, a photograph of Samira and her younger brother on the shelf, a well-worn quilt draped over the back of the couch. For the first time, she saw Samira's world outside of the park, and it made her heart swell with affection. "Thank you for letting me in," Evelyn said quietly, reaching over to take Samira's hand. Samira squeezed her hand in return, her eyes warm. "Thank you for being here. It's been a long time since I let anyone get this close." Evelyn leaned in, resting her head on Samira's shoulder. They sat in silence for a moment, content in each other's presence. Over the months that followed, Evelyn and Samira became even more intertwined in each other's lives. They introduced each other to their friends, shared family gatherings, and weathered the ups and downs of their careers together. Samira's family was initially hesitant, worried after the toll her divorce had taken, but they quickly came to appreciate Evelyn's calming influence in Samira's life. But as close as they grew, life still tested them in unexpected ways. One night, Samira received an emergency call from the hospital just as she and Evelyn were settling in for a quiet evening. Evelyn watched as Samira's face tensed, her mind instantly shifting into work mode. "I'm sorry," Samira murmured, already grabbing her coat. "They need me." Evelyn nodded, giving her a supportive smile. "Go. I understand." As Samira hurried out the door, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. She understood the demands of Samira's job, but there were moments when the distance between them felt palpable, as though an invisible barrier always kept them just out of reach of something deeper. On one particularly difficult day, Samira found herself overwhelmed by the emotional weight of her work. She had spent hours tending to a young patient who had come in with life-threatening injuries. Despite her best efforts, they lost him, and she left the hospital feeling hollow and numb. When she arrived home, Evelyn was waiting for her, sensing that something was wrong even before Samira stepped through the door. Without a word, Evelyn wrapped her arms around her, holding her tightly as Samira let out the tears she'd been holding back. They spent the evening in quiet companionship, Evelyn offering silent support, her presence a balm for Samira's aching heart. In that moment, Samira realized how deeply she depended on Evelyn, how much her life had changed since they'd met. "I don't know what I'd do without you," Samira whispered as they sat together, the weight of the day slowly lifting. Evelyn looked at her, her gaze steady and full of warmth. "You don't have to worry about that. I'm not going anywhere." But as life went on, their relationship began to show cracks beneath the surface. Samira's demanding schedule often kept her away, and Evelyn sometimes felt herself growing lonely, even when they were together. She knew that Samira's work was important, but there were days when she yearned for more consistency, more time to build a life together. After a particularly long stretch of days without seeing each other, Evelyn finally brought up her feelings, her voice tinged with frustration. I need more than this, Samira. I feel like I'm always waiting for you." Samira looked at her, her face a mixture of guilt and exhaustion. "I know. I'm trying, Evelyn, but my job. I know your job is important. I understand that. But it's hard to feel like I'm second to everything else." They sat in silence, both feeling the weight of the conversation. It was a hard truth, one they both had been avoiding. In the weeks that followed, they worked to find a balance, carving out more intentional time together, being honest about their needs. They leaned on each other, learned from each other, and discovered new ways to stay connected, even through the challenges. One spring afternoon, they returned to the park where they had first met, sitting side by side on the bench, watching the world go by. Evelyn turned to Samira, her face softened with a gentle smile. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" she mused, reaching for Samira's hand. Samira nodded, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I didn't know I could find this kind of happiness. Even with all the chaos. I feel like I finally have a home with you." They sat there, hand in hand, two people who had found each other despite the obstacles, who had chosen each other even when life pulled them in different directions. In that moment, Evelyn knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, drawing strength from the love they had built, from the quiet moments they shared, and from the knowledge that sometimes, the truest love was found not in grand gestures, but in the small, steady commitment to walk through life side by side.